Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. Welcome to season 4. Wow, season 4. Yeah, it's pretty special because this year, 2024 has already been off to a good start for the podcast. And I just want to show some appreciation. One, to you, the listeners and viewers of this podcast. So thank you so much. I know I'm always practicing gratitude and saying thank you, but it really is an honor when you see that the work that you're doing is being received well. And when I started this podcast, it was just out of my own ignorance per se. There were things I didn't know, and I wish I would have known starting. And I think, we grow when we share our stories and testimonies and how we've overcome things. And I just wanted to be able to share that experience with others. And so I'm very appreciative and want to just say thank you to you for listening. And because of you listening, we were recognized by Triathlete Magazine for being one of the best podcasts for beginners. So thank you, Triathlete Magazine, for the honor. It's really appreciative. I am appreciative, and it is extremely an honor. And I couldn't do this without two amazing women who helped me. So shout out to Sarah and Maria, who have been down since the beginning and just really helped to make this podcast what it is. And congratulations to the other 15 winners. So I guess it would be 14. So shout out to you guys, because doing a podcast is not easy. It is a lot of work that goes behind it. And so just shout out to you for doing what you do. And there's space for everyone to thrive and to succeed. Now, on the flip side, I was behind and got interviewed. So shout out to Feisty Media for interviewing me for the Iron Woman podcast. Now, listen, I like asking questions, and I felt very uncomfortable when questions were being asked to me and I had to give it. So now I am going to be very thoughtful when I'm asking my guests questions, because it is hard to come up with good answers and to just sit in the moment and be like, but I couldn't even remember certain things that they knew about me. So I will make sure that I am given that same honor, and I will be gentle and very graceful with my guest. So just know, I know how it feels now. So shout out to Haley Chura for doing such an amazing job with that. It is also Black History Month. That's right. And you know how I do it. I really like to make sure that I am showcasing Black folks during this month. I think we are an underrepresented group, and it is my job, I feel like, and it is my honor to make sure I bring people so that you can see a spectrum in this sport. Now, today, y'all know how I get real excited, and I'm trying to maintain calm. Y'all see me, I'm using my inside calm voice. Yes, I'm trying to. But if you follow the sport, you follow it and you see things happening. And last year in October was a really huge time in sport, especially for women. And I remember seeing this picture. It was 5 women in the picture, but a total of 6 who got an opportunity to race. And it was such a powerful, to me, picture because they looked like me. And to make it to this space, I'm talking about Ironman Kona, the women's edition, to me was very powerful. And it said a lot. And these women are now a part of history. They are in their own sorority, if you want to call it their tri-sorority, because they've done it. They did it, and they were able to do it while seeing each other on the course. Now, granted, congratulations to all the women who competed. I think it was a moment in history, but this to me is a Black history moment. And if it goes down into the Guinness World Records of history, their pictures will be right there. And so I want to make sure that I bring them to this audience and start off the month with them. I'm going to introduce them by name, but then we're going to get into their story. They are, of course, amazing age group athletes. We have authors, we have race directors, we have coaches. Yes, track coaches. We do. So let me just give you a snippet of who you are all about to get to be introduced to. We have Akila O'Grady. We have Annette Melecio. Her name is fancy, Melecio. It makes you want to like do a dance or something. Yay. Okay. Okay. We have Jamie Dismuke. We got Nicole Harris. We have Tiencia James. That's a fancy name too. Obviously, y'all know I'm messing up when I say it's a fancy name, but it's okay because I can make fun of myself. And we have Zsa Zsa Porter. I've been calling them the Sensational Six. I feel like they are the Sensational Six, and maybe I have the name wrong, but for today and for this moment, until I introduce them on, they are the Sensational Six who competed at the 2023 World Championships, Kona edition. Welcome to Try Beginner's Luck. Ladies, how y'all doing?
Doing good.
Good.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Doing well, thank you.
Y'all look so good. Look at all this color. I see y'all. Hey, hey. Hey, ladies. Hey. Well, here we go. One, thank you for being on here. And two, I don't think I've ever done this many individuals at one time. So thank you for grace in advance for those who are listening. But I thought it was important to share your collective story as well as individually, because one, no one else has done it. And so here we are, and we're going to make it happen on today. So why triathlon? We all have a different story, and I just want to get into know why and how did triathlon become a thing for you? Anybody who ever wants to start, take the floor.
Well, I'll start just in case the tones go off again. So I got into triathlon after the Boston Marathon bombing. This job, I work in EMS, been on an ambulance for, 20 something years. And it can be very stressful. And so after the Boston Marathon bombing, a lot of us found a way of, dealing with, yes, my name is Jamie. And I work in EMS, and I worked for Boston EMS for 8 years. And during that time, I experienced the Boston Marathon bombing. And to deal with PTSD, to deal with stress of the job, a lot of us got into endurance sports. Some of them ran marathons, including Boston, not me. But when they said, oh, there's a triathlon that's, next month and we'll give it to you free, I was like, okay, what does that consist of? Swimming, biking, running? I think I know how to do all of those. I just don't know if I'm good at doing them all in one day. And so, yeah, signed up, gave it a shot, went and bought a bike that same day and did something every day. And then when the time came and I did the race, I enjoyed every single minute of it. So that's how I got into triathlons. And my why has been staying in it, has been to, it's changed my life in a different way. It helped me deal with stress in a better way without going to the bars or, doing the bad things of dealing with stress, or just not dealing with it at all. And I've kind of stuck with it because it's a lifestyle change, and I've gotten to meet these amazing ladies and so many amazing people along the way.
Yeah, you have. And you are pretty darn good at it too. So that's also the added benefit. Like you get into something for one purpose, right? Like to help stress and to change your life. But you realize how good you are. And what if you had never been introduced to this? So I love it. Who else wants to go next?
I can go.
Okay.
I'm Tiencia. I first started doing endurance sports, mainly running, when I was younger. My father, he was a big runner. And so when I was younger, after my parents got a divorce, I really didn't want to run, but I started running with him just really to spend time with him. And he was such a good influence in terms of teaching me about endurance sports, especially at a time where there was no Black girls run, Black men run. There was no other mentors. And I remember in, elementary school and in high school, getting up in the morning to go for a 5 or 6 mile run with my dad. That evolved, and I stayed in running. I did marathons, half marathons. And then after I had my third child, I kind of wanted something different. I was looking for a new challenge, a new adventure. And I think I was drawn towards triathlon. Just the swim was intriguing, definitely my weakest leg. I had never gotten on a bicycle in any real fashion. And so it's kind of fun. Like when you've been doing something like running for a long time, you kind of reach a point where it's not that different. But when you do something totally new, like every day is a PR, every day is an adventure, it's learning and growing. And I really like that. And as I got into the sport, which I thought, oh, I'm just going to do a triathlon, I was really drawn to the people. And so that's kind of what I've been doing ever since. And my why, I guess, of continuing triathlon is just really so that, everybody can see that we can all have challenges and we can all have goals at any age. And for my kids to be able to see me working towards a goal, hopefully will inspire them to choose something that they want to be involved in their life and give it their all.
I love it. And the last race that you and your dad did together, if I saw correctly, was Peachtree Road Race, right?
Yes, we've done Peachtree Road Race as a family for many years. That race is very special. I've done it with my kids. It's very special.
I love it. Shout out to the ATL. Hey, okay.
Yeah.
That was actually that was my first 10K Peachtree Road Race back in 2010.
I think everybody needs to do it just for the experience at least once.
Yeah, going up Heart Attack Hill right
Yep.
at Piedmont Hospital.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Well, let's just say we survived and did not have the heart attack. Okay. All right. Who's up next?
I'll go next. My name is Annette Melecio. So my story is kind of a little bit like Jamie's. I'm active duty military, Army, and an MP. So I really didn't know too much about triathlons. I know I had come back from a very difficult deployment, and somebody was like talking about triathlons, and I was kind of like, oh, I mean, I'm pretty sure like I could swim, I mean, I knew how to swim. I didn't think it was going to be like swim, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure I could make it out of a pool. I didn't necessarily own a bike. One of the people that I met, like, let me use a mountain bike, and I'm like, running, I could run. So I found this group. I was actually stationed in California at the time, and I found this group called, I think it's California Triathlon. I can't think of the name now. Anyways, I went to a meeting with them, and I was like, these seem kind of like little crazy people, kind of like me, right? So I was like, I think, I'll kind of get into this. And I did like one sprint, one Olympic, and then right away signed up for like a 70.3. Before I even did the 70.3, I signed up for a full. And then it just kind of like went from there. But I really found, like a camaraderie. So a lot of times people in the military feel when you come back, you can't, you kind of feel a little bit awkward, and like civilians don't like understand you. Not saying civilians in like a derogatory form. It's just like you kind of just feel comfortable just with your people, from people in your, in your unit or other military people. So I was a little apprehensive going to the meeting, just because, I just kind of felt like out of place, and they just made me feel so welcomed. And I felt like dealing with PTSD. I had really bad PTSD, survivor's guilt. I had a suicide attempt, and the triathlon community, they welcomed me. It helped me deal with my PTSD. It helped me pretty much internalize when I'm training, I'm going to, focus on the things that I need to deal with. And then when I'm kind of home, I'm going to be able to like give myself to my kids and not feel like, I have all this stress and all these worries. So I do this. My why for this is, I do it for veterans. And those brothers and sisters that are currently still active duty like me, that are dealing with PTSD, that are dealing with, suicide issues and things like that, to let them know that there is help out there. It doesn't have to be obviously like triathlon or something physical, but as long as you find a group of people that you vibe with, they will welcome you, and just to always let them know that there's help out here no matter what.
One, thank you for your vulnerability. And I think it shows that this sport can truly save lives and change lives. And so thank you for sharing. And I'm grateful that you were able to find a tribe. There's nothing like, we're built to connect. And once you have that connection, we aren't meant to be in isolation. So I'm glad that Triathlon was able to do that for you. And for those of you who are listening, it can do it for you too. So listen, that's why we're sharing these stories, because everyone is different and we have a different why. And I just want you to know that you too can do it. So let's just throw up Akila.
Hi, everyone. My name is Akila. So my first triathlon actually was when I was a preteen. I was 12, and I did it for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I always say that I never race for free. So for me, what that means is I always have a philanthropic component tied to the races that I do. So started, as I said earlier on, racing for Make-A-Wish Foundation. Meaning, if you don't know anything about Make-A-Wish Foundation, there's always something giving to somebody who is potentially terminal, and then raising funds. So fast forward, similar to some of the stories that you've heard, went through a very traumatic divorce. Actually, let me back up a little bit. I did sport my entire life. So I've always been a competitive athlete. I was actually a competitive swimmer, which I always say swimming is my strongest suit, which as a Black triathlete always surprises a lot of people, because people usually expect that running or biking will be the strongest aspect. But as a competitive swimmer, I actually wish the swim was longer. So I swam competitively growing up all through high school, and did basketball and field hockey, and ultimately played field hockey in college. So I graduated, got married, and then got divorced, and then missed out on that team component because I was always in some sort of team sport. So I found my way back to endurance sport because the company that I was working with was doing a century ride for autism. And so I found myself amongst a community of what I call fit friends. And so I did my first century ride for autism awareness, and I thought, okay, cool. I actually was not a cyclist. I had to get a bike, and it had the things that I loved, right? It was for a philanthropic component. It was a community of athletes, and it was that endurance component, and it created an environment where I had to kind of focus on something else. And similar to what Jamie said, focus on something that kind of took me away from dealing with the trauma of my divorce in ways that were not healthy. And so out of that, surrounding myself with what I call my fit friends, a lot of them had actually participated in triathlon. And so one of them came to me and said, hey, why don't you try Eagleman? And I was like, I don't know, that sounds a little crazy. I don't think so. And they said, oh, don't worry, Akila, we're going to stick by you, which echoes the sentiment of what everybody has said is, we will stick by you. We will, see you through it. It'll be great. It'll be fine. I said, okay, fine, but I'm not doing this for free. I don't race for free. And so I actually tied that to a fundraising component for Children's Hospital for my late nephew, Keb Lynn, which ties to a hashtag that I have with everything, hashtag I race for Keb. And so with that just kind of started, and I chuckle because I'll never forget when I was at Eagleman, I ran into a gentleman, and he was welcoming me into the fold, so to speak. And I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe people are so happy. How many of you done, whatever. And he was like, oh, just you wait. Cause I remember he had said that he was on probably, I don't know, like his 5th or 6th. And I looked at him like he was crazy. And he was like, don't you worry. He's like, come talk to me after. I was like, no, this is insane. One and done. Okay. So one and done turned into 4 halves, 2 fulls. I don't know how many centuries later. And this was about 7 years ago. But the reality of the matter is it's been such a great journey because there have been so many people along the process that have been with every single shape, size, fitness level, fitness journey. I love to kind of pick people up and, join them, have them join with me. And so it's been fun because my kids have gotten involved. I have 2 children. They've done triathlon as well. And one of the things that I love about this process is that you can actually see people on race course that are every single shape, size, right? And what they say, just keep moving. And I think that's what I love the most about this process too. It's like you just keep moving and you can encourage folks, and there are people that are out there that are just out there doing. You just show up. You show up for yourself and you show up for others, and you continue to encourage others. So that's my why. That's my love. That's
I
me.
love it. Now let's talk
Yeah.
about this swimming part, because I grew up a
Yeah.
swimmer too, and we didn't do Q-tips. So where did the Q-tip thing come from? Because that
Oh,
ain't something we do.
Q-tips. My Q-tips. Okay, so as a swimmer, on long course, if you're doing a swim meet, they have the people that will put the count for you in the
Okay.
lane, and they'll shake it for you, right? So if you're doing, I don't know, 1,500, if you're doing at that 500, then you don't have to count. And for me, swimming is the best part because nobody can reach me. My children know it's mommy swim time. Do not call me. Do not mess with me, right? And so I lose count. And I know on your Garmin, like you can put in drill log and all that other stuff, and it can count for you. But I just get like confused. And I'm also a visual learner, and also on my calendar, I love to have my training calendar printed off, and you can check things off. So with the Q-tips, I put the actual training out for what I'm doing that day, and I have them, and I have the different piles. If I move them from one pile to the next, I know my long set is coming down to a close, and it just pushes me to move forward and faster. It's like my little Sherpas at the pool deck. I love it.
And
It's
that's why
instant gratification. I'm telling you, try it. It doesn't be Q-tips. It can be toothpicks, rubber bands,
well, Saj from Varlo, he used pennies. So
pennies.
everybody. I just thought, like, when I heard you say, and I was like, and I heard you say you grew up as a swimmer, I'm like,
Yeah.
it doesn't track, but long distance swimming is a different thing. I was more on the shortest side.
Yeah.
But no, I love it. To each your own. I'm glad that you don't race for free. None of us technically do, but look, when you do it behind a cause, it makes it even greater.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean when I say I don't race for free. It's like
Yeah.
when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I'm going to run 26 miles, that is just absolutely crazy. But if you're telling me I'm running 26 miles because we are the Sensational 6 out here, and we are out here to make history, and we just have to go out here and run 26 miles, I'm going to lace up my sneakers. Here's a fun fact. I hate running. Hate it. But if you want me to do it because we're going to, break a barrier, then I'm your girl.
Keep breaking barriers. All right. Zsa Zsa, take it away.
Hey, so I'm Zsa Zsa Porter. I also grew up swimming, mainly because my mother dropped me off at the community center in California. No babysitter when she had to go to work, so I just got dropped off, and she came and found out on I think maybe that weeks from that Friday that I had a swim meet the following that particular weekend, and that she needed to bring me actually on a Saturday, which she didn't normally do. I did breaststroke, so not freestyle as a child, but that was always my strength between breaststroke and butterfly. That's where they needed someone, and so that's where they put me because I wasn't doing anything and I didn't want to go to dance class. So that's how I started with swimming. And then as a teenager, I was in track, mostly a sprinter, not long distance, but was pretty good with both sports. And with cycling, didn't have too much money. So I put my bike together with spare parts in the neighborhood. And that's how I cycled as a child. So fast forward to an adult, my husband's in the military. I have 3 kids, poured everything into them. And then one Christmas, I, faithfully every year had us match to wear clothes for our Christmas card. And I went to put on the suit that I was going to wear because I said I'd wear blue, my old blue suit. I got everyone's clothes, the boys matching, my daughter in the blue stripes, and my husband had a really good blue suit from Afghanistan. And then I went to put on my suit and it didn't fit. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I should stop telling people I just had a baby because he was 6. And that story is getting kind of old. So I need to start doing some type of activity for myself. That's when I saw a bunch of females on Facebook and they were running early in the morning. And I was like, oh my God, that is so insane. Why would you do that at 5 a.m.? And I was like, oh, because you get time to yourself without the family and kids. So I did Black Girls Run. And eventually I was introduced to triathlon by someone named Dawn Davis Calhoun. She was leading things up on BTA. Unfortunately, she passed away of cancer, but I love that she was riding her bike and she had pigtails and she had a pink bike. So I told my husband, I really think I found my thing. Buy me a bike for Christmas. And he got me a bike. And then I rode it around the neighborhood and I was like, okay, it works. And then it sat in the garage for a couple of months. And then I was like, okay, maybe I need a goal. So I was like, I won't tell anyone. I will sign up for a triathlon. And I did something in North Carolina called the Azalea Tri. And because I'd never been to a bike store or anything like that, I just showed up, I dragged my daughter with me, and we stayed for the night. And then I looked around and I was like, holy crap, people have really nice bikes. And no one has a kickstand, and they have these shoes, and everything seemed really fancy. And I was like, I don't know. And I didn't even know how to pump my tires. So, I came in last, but then I thought my daughter, like every time I came out of the pool last, because I'm doing the breaststroke, because that's the only thing I do. And I'm biking, I didn't put my tire. I think it was flat almost the whole race. And then I'm running. And she was so excited the entire time. And she thought, well, we can only improve from here, Mom. And I thought, well, you're right. I guess we'll just keep this going. So then I joined groups like Try for Life. And every time I had something, my kids were always there in encouragement. And I realized really what my why was is they never saw me quit. They never saw me give up. No matter where I was, it was always last. But no matter where I was on the course, I was back in the pack. But they were always so excited, always so encouraging. And I thought, I'm really teaching them something over time to just have a goal. And no matter what it looks like, whether you feel like you can achieve it, no matter where you are on the course, you just do your best and get to the finish line. And that's what I've taught them over time. And over time, my why has evolved because my mom, when she, being a kid, she found out that I was in the swim team. And of course, that one I was last for the first swim because I didn't know what I was doing. And she came back with her clipboard and was like, we're going to get this together because she was actually a competitive swimmer. She was like, you're not going to be last for everything. So, I started to evolve my way to middle of the pack. And over time, I've started to evolve my way from being dead last all the time. And she's been at races and she's had her clipboard and was like, listen, this is what you got to do. And unfortunately, she passed away over a year and a half ago. And I told her that I would continue to do it. And I released my book right before she passed away. It's called Running for My Life. And she has become my why. So I've evolved from like really showing my kids to really competing on behalf of my mom and others and just letting people see us, no matter what it looks like, no matter what you're thinking it's about, just strive for your goal and you can get there and make it happen.
Absolutely, you can. And I'm sorry for the loss of your mom, but I'm grateful that you get to honor her every day you try. And the fact that your kids, out of the mouth of babes, they say the darndest things, right? But that just shows you, and they're shaking head like, yeah, but that motivation, it's like you can't quit when you got kids looking up to you and they one day will be able to get to try and do this. And so kudos to you for just having your kids out there watching you and watching the process. Because I think sometimes when you don't get to see the process and you only see the end result, which sometimes on social media happens, you just see the highlight reel, you don't realize the things that you have to go through in order to be successful. So kudos to you. Nicole, are you with
Kids are
us?
actually, sorry,
Oh,
can I just add, I think the
yeah,
kids are
sure.
actually sometimes worse than our coaches because Zsa Zsa, like I love that you said that your kids are just always there and they're always cheering you on. And I think my child will, I don't know if your kids do this, but they'll look at my training schedule and some days I'm just like, I don't want to do it. And they're like, Mommy, like you got to keep going or it's like, what your next goal is and they're always cheering you on. So I think that's so great what you were saying about your kids just always cheering you on. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, or if they're looking forward to the trip.
There or the trip,
Aren't
yeah.
we going to Like, we're going to so-and-so, so I'm gonna need you to get to the pool. Because my daughter, who's like, 10 years older now since then, is just like, I have my outfits planned.
Yeah.
So this Australia thing, I really hope this is happening.
Where's
So,
the
yeah.
next race?
Listen, it's
Right.
all about these trips. Make sure you keep them happy.
Right.
Keep them happy, okay? Nicole, are you with us?
Forgive me here. I am here. I'm not sure how to get my camera to turn on, but I am here.
Okay.
Yes, Nicole Harris here. What is my story? I guess, I've always been an athlete. Athlete year round when I was in high school, and then when I through college, intramurals and whatnot, played softball in college. And then when I got out of college, it was just, I just like to stay active. Some people like to fish. I like to exercise. So, I mean, no matter what it is, I just try to find, I'm always into something new. Even tried pole dancing once, just a class, but you'd be amazed at what kind of strength it builds in your arms. But anyway, but I like to try different things. It's just, I like to just be active and move around. So running was first for me because that's the easiest. And then someone got me into lap swimming, which is still my weakest thing, but I get through it. And then when it came to just trying to get into triathlon, it was just a matter of getting a bike. So I finally broke down or just got myself together, I guess, enough I said, all right, get yourself a bike. You're going to do this now. And so that was about 15 years ago, and just been at it ever since. Enjoy it. I'm a very competitive person. So it's just a way, honestly, to just stay in shape. For one, I'll be 51 next month. So it's just a way to stay in shape. And I enjoy it. I enjoy it. There's nothing like going for a run and just being able to, and people will be funny. How do you run without music? You don't have anything. How do you get through it? And I'm like, first of all, you got to hear what's going on around you, number one. But number two, it's just, there's that moment when you're by yourself and you can just think, and your mind can wander, and I don't know. So it's just, it's me time, I guess. So that's it. I enjoy it. And that's why I'm still doing it.
I absolutely love that. It's like, hey, I'm in it. I'm doing it. I'm going to stay active, and I'm going to do it until I can't. I absolutely like that. All right. So we got your stories about the how, your why. And I think, Zsa Zsa, you told us about your first time story, a little bit of it. But now I want to go back into first time stories, because I want to find out who these persons were before Kona. Like, who were you the first time you got out there and raced? What experience did you have? What did it feel like? What did it look like? Because I want people to be able to paint the picture for them before we get into the Kona picture. I'm going to just call out. I feel like Jamie want to go first. She's like, oh, let me tell you what happened was when I was in that pool and then I couldn't do it. Go ahead and share. We're in group mode now.
Okay.
Come on, group
So my first time story was Boston Triathlon. I signed up a month before. Like I said, it was almost free. And, between Boston EMS, Boston Fire, New York Fire Department had a triathlon club. So they kind of introduced us to it. And so when they told me about it, I'm like, okay, I know how to swim, but we're about to swim in where? The ocean? I'm like, okay. So only having a month, there was really no preparing for it. So I already had a mountain bike. So I kind of went for a ride, and I was doing 8 miles an hour. And I looked at the previous results, like every first timer does, right? I look at the previous results and I'm like, this ain't gonna work. So I went to the bike shop, got a road bike. I asked for a road bike to get me through the triathlon, and they gave me this 8-speed road bike. I didn't know at the time that was a bad idea, but got my 8-speed road bike. So I get to the venue the day before, because they wanted us to rack our bikes the day before at this race. And it was a sprint at the time. That's all they had was a sprint. And so I get there, I rack my bike after getting all these packets of different things. And I'm like, where does any of this stuff go? There's bibs, stickers, all these things. And I'm just reading every single direction. How do I do this? Where do I put it? And I rack my bike. get my little bag, hop in my truck, don't ask no questions because ain't nobody there looking like me. Or it wasn't that nobody was friendly, it just felt, like I felt like I didn't want to look like the person that didn't know what they was doing. So I didn't ask any questions. I literally just kind of like read the paper and stuff like that. And then there was 5 other Boston MS people that was doing it, but they weren't there that day. So I got home, called up Felicia at the time, and she had never done a triathlon either. So we're just trying to like figure it all out because none of us want to look like that person who don't know what they're doing. Mind you, like I done already went on, and bought this, I don't know, cheap tri-suit. Yeah, it was a hot mess. So race day comes, and then I realized everybody was friendly enough to like help me out. Even when it looked like I didn't know what I was doing, they was like, oh, this is where this goes. You probably want to set your shoes here. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is very helpful because I didn't know anything. So I'm there probably like 2 hours early, which has been a persistent thing since then too. So I'm there really early, set up all my stuff, get the help on, put like like transition, like setting all the stuff there. And then I go to put this wetsuit on. I am exhausted after putting the wetsuit on. That I'm like, I hadn't swam before this. I had swam in a lake, but I hadn't swam in the harbor, which is where the Boston Triathlon is. So there was kind of like waves and a little bit of wake, but it wasn't too terrible. But in my mind, it was like, I'm gonna do this regardless of how bad it looks, right? I wasn't even worried. So I'm putting on this wetsuit and I'm exhausted. So I'm just like laying in the sand, holding it down like this because it's like so tight. I can't breathe. It's the first time I'd ever put it on. And it gets time to start. Sorry about that. And it's not for me, thank goodness. And hopefully you can still hear me over it. But I don't know if you want me to keep talking through this or wait until it's done.
Keep talking. We're rolling.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So yeah, I get into the novice group because this triathlon was made for the first timers. So I get into the novice group, and which starts last. Do my little, get into the water, see how it feels with my feet. It's super cold. And then there's like a mass start, but it's not a mass start because it's not that many. It's probably only like 20 of us, but we all go off at the same time. And we're all first timers and novice, have never done triathlon before. So they blow the horn, I run, do my little beach start, and I hit the water. My goggles fill up with water, and I'm like, kind of like, okay, I can't see. And then I'm like, flip over because I swam, so I wasn't uncomfortable in the water. I flipped over, undid my goggles, put them back on, and I get to looking at the buoys while I'm swimming, and I start panicking because I'm like, oh my God, that is so far away. Like, when am I gonna get to this turn buoy? So I get to the turn buoy finally, and it's just like just waves hit me in the face. So it gets rough when you get further out, and the waves are like hit me in the face. I'm swallowing water. I'm like, I may have got myself in a little too deep here. Like, but I know that there's boats out there, so I know there's safety if I need it. And so I just keep swimming, just keep going. And I bump into a guy. He says, I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, okay. It's okay to bump into people. Like, I won't get, drowned out here. And then one night, like, I'm not moving very fast. And I'm like, oh, he's having problems. And so he kind of like swims over to the kayak, and I'm just kind of moseying around being nosy, looking to see what's going on. And then finally I finish, get on to like, take this wetsuit off, get on the bike. The bike is like multiple loops, but it's only like an 8-mile stretch, and there's a lot of turns. You do like a horseshoe. So it was super fun. I wasn't going very fast. And at that point, like I didn't feel competitive or anything, but I'm, doing it and I'm feeling great about it. I'm like, I'm really doing this. I'm really doing this. And I feel like I'm going fast. I was probably going 13 miles an hour. It was so crazy. But then I get off the bike and I start the run, which was 4 miles in this sprint, unlike some of them, which is 5K. And so all of my coworkers are cheering us on. And I am like, what is this feeling in my legs? So I hadn't get a bike and then ran afterwards. I had just done something every day, right? Either something, but not putting them together. So when I got off the bike and my legs felt like bricks, it was something new and uncomfortable. And all I could do was just laugh at myself. Like, I just knew I was so unprepared for this whole situation. But I kept going. I did my little jog, just kept making it through. And then finally it came to an end. Like all things come to an end. And it was the most exciting feeling to accomplish something that, at points of the day, at each point, other than the bike, because the bike was still hard, but in the swim, on the run, I didn't know if I was going to be able to finish. So to be able to get to that finish line, it was a feeling like I had not felt ever, of accomplishment and pride in myself, that I had, fought through these like moments of not wanting to, continue on, or not knowing if I could, and just, accomplishing that. And then, Boston Triathlon, they're not the most healthiest. So they let you drink as much beer as you want. And that's what I went and did right after the race. And I am talking to these guys who are going to be going to do Lake Placid. So that was the first introduction to Ironman. And I don't know if I understood the distances at the time, but I heard the distances and it sounded really cool. And they made me think that that was the only way to truly be a triathlete, was to do an Ironman. So I do not suggest that for anybody. You do not have to be do an Ironman to be a triathlete, but that was my thought. So after that race, I knew I needed to sign up for an Ironman. And before I did any other distance, I signed up for Ironman Texas. So yeah, that was my first time experience. And side note, I worked for Boston MS, and they informed me that that guy that had said, I'm sorry, that I had bumped into, actually went into cardiac arrest. So it was very difficult to get anybody else to do the sport after telling them my first time story, but he survived. They brought him back, and I don't think he came back to race again, but they kind of kept up with him, and he's doing just fine. So if you need help while you're ever out there swimming, don't hesitate to stop at a kayak. Don't feel like you have to keep going if you're feeling short of breath or winded. Take the moment to stop, take a breath. Do not end up in the back of an ambulance, because we as endurance athletes will sometimes push ourselves beyond our limits. And there are times where you need to listen to your body and give it a second. But that's my first time story and a little public information.
Listen, I don't even got to add nothing to that. I was going to be like, yeah, you got to add nothing. So
first time story was in New Orleans. I was living in New Orleans up until 5 years ago, and just had been training by myself, and then started training with a group to swim, and that was my first time to meet other athletes in the city. And but still kind of doing it on my own, because my kids were still at home. So, training was more of a when I could do it more. And luckily my kids at this point were teenagers, so they could be left at home while I went out for a 3-hour ride or something like that. Because I had decided, like the fool that I am, anytime I hear somebody say, oh, this is my first triathlon, and it's an Ironman, I'm just like, oh my goodness, that's brave, right? But my first race was it was the half, and I was like, okay, so let me go do this thing, and started training a little bit with a group on group rides and whatnot, but for the most part mostly by myself. And then I think that was what, 2011. I was by myself for the most part for 5 years, just kind of training on my own before I started to. And again, I think this just kind of syncs up with my kids. When they were leaving the house, they left, went off to college, and then now it was me time. It was me time. It was me time. So I could train when I want, and then I started to get more active into the group, the triathlon group that was in New Orleans, and someone said, yeah. So I started thinking about doing an Ironman, And one of my training partners is like, yeah, I'll do it with you. And I learned, I've known this person now for several years. This wouldn't be the first time we did it, but he was just like, changed my mind. I'm not going to do it. Like, what? So now I'm going to do Ironman Florida, and he's decided he's not going to do it. And I'm just like, okay, no big deal. And I remember talking to one of the coaches, and I'm like, you think I can do this? You think I can do this? And and he's like, he just knowing me for a short while was just like, he remember he told me this afterwards. He's like, I kind of sat back. I was driving when I was talking to you, and I sat back and thought about, well, can I get her across the finish line? Because again, just not having any knowledge of each other really, because I had just started to swim in the group really, but hadn't really done much of anything else with them. So, so just started, giving me training plans, and started to get ready for Florida. Started to swim and bike and run with the others, and it's just amazing. How much better you can be when you're with other people who can push you to be better. It just helped me so much anyway. And again, maybe it's that competitiveness, but it's just, just run harder, run faster, and you do it when you do it better when you're with other people. I just truly believe this. And I feel it's very important to make that your goal. I found it to be a little bit harder now as I'm getting older, and I think the triathlon scene is changing a little bit, to still sometimes find people to train with, because again, even though I'm 50, I still am trying to get better, and sometimes it's been harder to as interest in sport seems to be waning a little bit. It's harder to find people who can still get you to that next level. So you have to change your group a little bit. But anyway, I digress. I'm sorry. So back to Florida, first race. And but at this point, I'm swimming well, probably because again, I was swimming with the group, swimming well and biking really well, and I can run really well. And I went into the water just feeling really comfortable. And the bike, again, anybody who's done Florida, it's a flat course, so it's a really good course for a beginner, for a first time full racer. And then just went in with a really strong run, and called my coach afterwards, and he didn't expect me to be done. I don't even know that he was tracking me at the time. Really, I really don't think he was tracking me. So my friend that I raced with and we called him, because we had the same coach. We called him together. And I was like, hi, Dave. He's like, Dave. I was like, I'm done. He's like, what? I think I finished with like a 12:47, I think was my time. And so he just didn't expect me done. And he's like, you sound like you just ran a 5K. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel really good though, But that was my first time. And then after that, I just had made a goal to do one Ironman a year. And I guess with Kona, that was a surprise, 2 a year. But yeah, that's my first time story with Florida, and then it's just been fun ever since.
So I almost was confused. I thought you started with a 70.3, and then when you said
sorry.
Ironman Florida, I was like, whoa. So you were the crazy person.
No, I apologize. I jump around when I talk. I apologize. No, I started out with a 70.3. That was my first race, and I did 70.3s for the first few times, and then I did, and then Florida. I apologize. First race was a 70.3, and it was in New Orleans. If you remember, when they first started to do the races, they had it in the open water. So thankfully, the swim was canceled that year, because they canceled it and just had us go out by twos. And so which turned out to be a good thing, because when I got on that bike, this was before I knew anything really about pacing myself, whatnot. So I got out, started on that bike, and I'm just like, on your left, on your left, on your left. And by the time 5 miles was over, I was worn out. I was like, okay, lesson learned right there. Pace yourself and pace yourself. That's it. And
So,
yeah.
Nicole, I just want to wrap this up really quick, because
apologize.
The other people, like, they want to tell their story too. And so
okay. Yeah, I'm done. Sorry.
But I want to wrap it up, because you did a half first, and then you went to do a full. So you just started out. Ultimately, what made you say, I want to do a half and then keep going to the full, like instead of going back or starting with the sprint or Olympic?
No, I mean, I mixed it in. I apologize. No, the first few years, my first half was in 2011. My first full was in 2017. I apologize, y'all, if that's confusing. But no,
Nicole, we're going to give you a whole situationship here, child. Listen.
I apologize. I'm so excited to be talking, and this is what happens. I get nervous, excited, and then I'm all over the place. So no, my first 5 years were every year I did the 70.3 in New Orleans because they had it every year, and then we also had sprints and whatnot. I mixed it up. 2017 was my first full. There we go. Okay, sorry,
Okay.
I'm done.
And you know what, Nicole? You might not have heard this, but I said I'm going to give grace to the person on the other side. See, that's what right? Being tested. No, I'm just kidding. No, in real life, I understand what it is when you're like getting on and you're excited and you talk, you forget stuff. It happened to me literally a couple of weeks ago with me doing an interview, so I get it. So we just we're glad that you tried. No apologies needed. This is what it's all about. This is the fun part. You know, to be able to be on the opposite side and ask to give questions, to answer the questions, it's a lot. And so even to be able to ask questions, it's a lot. And so I'm just grateful that you're here and being able to share your story. And let's just know, when you've been racing for 15 years, it's probably to keep it all together. It's a lot. So you've been doing it. You are the, unless Tiencia, have you been doing it for 15 years or close to that time?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, about
okay.
Maybe.
So you guys are the OGs. Y'all been doing it for a long time, leading the way. So I give you your respect, hands down, respect. So speaking of, let's just switch over to Tiencia, because I think you guys are in that southern region. So making it happen in the southern region, and you guys have probably raced together a lot throughout the course of your 15 years racing. So tell us your brief and amazing beginner story.
Yeah, so when I first decided that I wanted to give triathlon a try, my interest jumped straight towards the iron distance. I love a lot of autobiographies of athletes. And so, I mean, I've read them all, like Mike Tyson. It's not sports specific, but I remember I read Iron War about Mark Allen and Dave Scott, and I was just really interested in that. So I decided I wanted to do a full, and then I went to find a coach, which Haley Chura with Dynamo, she's my coach, and she was like, okay, do you swim? And I was like, I know how to swim. And she was asking me, you know, my biking experience, which was none. And so then we went back and kind of filled up my race schedule leading up to a full Ironman. So we put in a sprint distance, we put in some Olympics leading up to it. So I felt like I had a lot of guidance going into my first race. And I did Blaylock, which is a small local race series here in Atlanta. And it's a very good beginner sprint try, kind of like Jamie was saying, they have a wave for new athletes. So they let all the athletes go by and then the new people go in. It was an Atlanta summer, so it felt like it was 100 degrees. So it was definitely a new experience. So, you know, getting in the water, I had been swimming and I had my swim workout. So I felt like, you know, okay, I can do this. I didn't have any time goals, so it was nice to not to have that pressure. But I totally, I guess, underestimated the need to sight. So I remember, you know, diving in the water and swimming. And I mean, I thought I was killing it. I was like Simone Manuel out there. And then I look up and I have no idea where the race is because I'm way off on the other side of the lake because I haven't been sighting at all until I get totally off course. So then I get out the water and I'm a little disoriented because I'm not used to the feeling of like swimming really hard and then standing up. And I get to transition and I can't find my bike because all the bikes look the same. So I'm twirling around. I think I picked up other people's bikes and it was kind of a mess. And then I finally found my bike. And of course I did the thing that I always tell my athletes not to do, which is don't rack your bike in a hard gear. So I jump on my bike and I almost fall over, trying to get it in the right gear. But then after that, it was pretty good. I love biking. I think fitness from running translates very well into biking, but I didn't like biking around people. So that was kind of nerve-wracking, is to be out there and have people zooming by you or trying to turn a corner and not get too close. But once I made it off the bike, I was home free. But I always thought, you know, being a runner from the beginning that, okay, this is going to be my jam. This is going to be so easy. I mean, at that time, I was in really good shape and I was running pretty fast. But when you're a runner, all your races start at 8 o'clock in the morning. And even if it's the middle of the summer in Atlanta, it doesn't really get hot until the afternoon. But when you do the triathlon and you start the run and it's literally 100 degrees with the sun right over your head, that was a totally different feeling. But I just remember it was so much fun not to worry about place, not to worry about my splits. Just the overall excitement of the day. I remember coming down the finishing chute and my kids were there with their hands out. And it's so funny because when I finished the race, obviously there were people in front of me and my kids are like, "Did you win?" You know, and I kind of felt like I did. I kind of felt like, wow, this is really cool. So that was my first, triathlon. And that really, after I did that one, like I was hooked. I was ready for the Olympic and I was looking forward to the longer events.
Shout out to Hey Jura. Come on. And just shout out to you. But yeah, you're right. That big gear, that's a PSA, as we say, Jamie. It's a PSA. Don't do it. Put it in a low gear before you get off the bike. Annette, tell us you kind of told us a little bit of your first time story, but kind of take us through like the swim, bike, and the run portions of it.
So my first time was a sprint. I had used somebody's road bike because I still did not have a bike. I had a mountain bike that somebody was letting me use, and I used somebody's road bike. And the start of the swim, I think that somebody could tell by my face, maybe I was a little apprehensive because I was like, this is a lot different than like swimming in a pool. And I was like, okay, they're like, oh, it's gonna be okay. And I was like, okay. So I'm like running in, and I remember they were like, never walk in the swim, So I remember it was kind of shallow, but I was like, okay, let me just start swimming. And it's like it was so shallow, I literally couldn't even like move my arms. And so people were like, you don't start swimming yet. Like it wasn't even it was like kind of to my knees, but they're like, just keep going, swim, whatever. So that was kind of a mess. The bike, I wasn't really used to it. I couldn't figure out how to switch gears, and it was kind of like a hilly course. So I was just praying, like, just don't get off the bike as I'm like about to tip over. My garments like stopped, it paused because I guess I was riding so slow. So that was an experience. And then my kids were there, and they're like, "Are you almost done?" When it was like time for the run portion, like we're tired. But the run, I felt good for the run part, and then that was it, pretty much. And they're like, okay, let's go. They didn't want me to take photos. They're like, we're tired. We're ready to go back. We're ready to go home, But then they're like, you did a good job, Mom. And they were like, really proud. And then I got in the car and they're like passed out. So that was my first race.
Well, at least when you got home, you had peace and quiet because they were tired. See,
no,
so
I was tired. They were fine because they slept the whole way. They're like, what are we gonna do now? I'm like all sunburned and looking crazy.
Oh, I love it. Good energy of being out there. So because I feel like you were already physically fit with your military background, you really didn't have much of a transition in terms of the feeling of like Tiencia said, in terms of coming out of the water a little exhausted or
Oh no,
having your
ma'am.
feet feel like bricks. You were kind of physically already prepared for that portion of it.
No, that was a hot mess the whole time. I didn't
Oh,
like
you just didn't tell
elaborate
us that
much.
part. See, she was giving us the highlight reel. Well, see, what happened was, I was like, see,
No, all of it was I was swallowing water. I was, I got out. I'm like, I knew where my stuff was because I did have like a group. They were like, oh, make sure, like they had put like a piece of tape or whatever to get my bike and stuff.
mm-hmm.
But that's the swim. I really don't like swimming. And that was like the first open water swim kind of thing. And so I was really nervous about the swim. And still now I still don't like to swim like close to people. And I was like, kind of getting hit all over the head. So I was like, this is just horrible. This is a hot mess. But I was like, I can't stop because my kids are here. And then the bike, like I said, it wasn't even my bike. I was trying to figure out how to switch gears. I'm like trying to climb in these super hard gears, but I was like, I'm not going to get off. And I didn't even have pedals. I did it in gym shoes. So, because it was my bike and I didn't want to just put in cleats because I didn't know how to like flip in and out. So yeah.
See, I had
So
to
it was a
pull.
quick transition because I didn't have to change my shoes, Jamie.
Love, love, love it. Zsa Zsa, you mentioned that you came in last previously in all of your races, which is it doesn't matter when you finish. Let's just put it that way. Because if you're finishing, that means you're out there trying. So I want to talk about the highlights of your first race that you did breaststroke all the way through. That's not an easy thing to do breaststroke all the way through for your first race. Let me just be very clear for those of you who do, maybe it's called American crawl. I think that's or elementary, whatever. Anyway, that's not easy to do. So take us through the high levels of your first race.
Okay, so that was a pool try. And I did that 3 times. My first race was Augusta, which I still did breaststroke because I didn't know how to freestyle. It's taken me a while to transition from that stroke to the other. But in that first one, um, I think it was, men and women, of course, and I was in line to get in the lanes behind a ton of huge men. So I was definitely overwhelmed by that. My daughter, I could look up and see her from the bleachers, and she was like, and I was like, heart pounding, wanting to die. I was like, why are we even doing this? I remember looking at everything. I know when Jamie had mentioned that she had, you get all the stickers and all the instructions, and I was so overwhelmed. I didn't know anybody who was doing it. This was in Wilmington, so it was 4 hours from my house. I was like, we can't just go back home. It's like a 4-hour drive. And I brought my baby all the way down here for me to do something. So I kind of was like, hey, so do you want to go to the mall tomorrow instead of us going to the try? And she was like, Mom, why don't you just at least try and see how you feel? So, she was helping me in the instructions, putting everything on my bike. And I was really scared with the swim. And remember, there were ladies that I hadn't met yet. They were wearing all pink and they were from Try It for Life, which I'm a member of that now. But I was in the lane swimming, and they came near the lane and were coaching me. I was going and telling me that I was almost there. You had to start at one end of the pool and just keep zigzagging your way all the way to the end. And once you got to the end, you run out the door and go to your bike. And so I was just like, I think I made it like almost to the end, that last lane. And I was like, I'm tired. Like I've been so tired of swimming. And people swam around me. And I finally got to that edge where they were there and they were just yelling at me to keep going. They were the only Black women I remember seeing in that whole place. And I could see them from the side as I lifted out. And I was just like, okay, I'm not by myself. I feel like I have a lot of encouragement. My daughter's in the stands. I can't just stop now. So I remember running out to get my bike. And then I saw like there was still a ton of people because they had you by number. So it wasn't even by time or anything like that. So I remember looking out, and I'd never been to a bike shop before. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of bikes. And I think I spent maybe 20 minutes in transition. Like I was looking at the different shoes. I was so amazed of everything that I saw. And I was just thinking, it's amazing. Like I feel like I need to tell Jane, like I not only want a bike, but I also want to feel the things that I see out here. So I'm like taking note of all the things. And Irina's looking at me like, Mom. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm still in a race. So I have to get on my bike, which I did not pump the tires. So I'm pretty sure the tires were flat. And I didn't know how to use the gears because I only rode around the neighborhood a few times. So I think it was about 12 miles. So I went around very slow. Jamie, I think you were 13 miles an hour, I was probably 10, going around the block to get there. Now I could run. And so the 5K wasn't a big deal. So though I may have passed people in the 5K, I was still dead last because of everything else. But I think I felt amazing because I was just like, I came here last night. I said I wasn't going to do it. I wanted to go shopping instead to buy her stuff for money that I didn't even have. But I'm a triathlete. I can tell my friends. Like none of my friends from back home could actually say they were triathletes. Like when I remember I posted it, and this was very new to social media, I was like, I did a triathlon. My friends were like, what? How long did that take you? How long was it? So after that, I met other friends who were doing 70.3s and stuff like that. And I was like, I think I want to do this in a longer distance. I was telling other people, my husband helped me upgrade my little pink bike with no kickstand. And that's when I decided I wanted to do Augusta. It was 2 hours away, so I could still drive. I found out that it was hilly, that you're in open water, which I didn't really know what that meant. I wasn't afraid of water, so whether it was a pool or outside, it didn't really make a difference to me. I just knew that it was going to be hot and I needed to train more for hills. And that was something that I, did with other women as I met women here in Charlotte that were riding. I would just ask, are you guys riding? And whether they were doing 56 miles or whatever. I kept trying to do that. And that's when like my whole family sometimes come with me, and they were all at that race. And my husband was there, like taking all the pictures. He was just so excited to take pictures of me and to tell all of our family that I was doing triathlon, because it just seemed amazing. Like no one else in our family was doing that. We were either doing runs or that was it. You wouldn't hear of not only just Black people or just anybody that we knew was doing it. So it just seemed amazing. So just to start doing something like that, though it was overwhelming, really scary, I think having my family by my side through the entire journey of even fear and encouraging me is something that I'll just never forget.
Yeah, and you shouldn't forget that 20-minute transition, child, what you was doing. But that, you know,
shopping.
Your mind is like mine. I get distracted easily. And so you are right. Sometimes you can get carried away in transition because you're like, but those shoes, but those bike. It is overwhelming. So this
And
is
Jamie
a no.
said that she met people that told her about like your shoes should go here. My stuff was in a bag. Like I was so scared. I wasn't there early. I didn't get there early with everyone. I just got there and was like, let me just get this over with. So I didn't see other transition stuff until I came out of the pool. So I come out, I see everything set up, and I'm like, wait a minute. So it was kind of like a real life tutorial of things. And then when people were out, I was like, what's that on your pedals? I saw clips for the first time. There was all and people are looking at me like, are you supposed to be in here? Asking all these questions. We're supposed to be doing a race. And I was like, okay. But once the race was over, this man saw me. He said, good job. How'd you do? And I said, well, I finished. He said, good job. So, maybe next time you can get yourself some pedals and you can get yourself some this, and you can get that. And I was like, writing that down. Pedals. What does that mean? I'm just going to find this out later.
I love it. I think that's the thing. Sometimes if you don't have a tribe that you're coming into sport, it can be overwhelming. You don't know what you need. So this is just a good lesson to know that, hey, it's okay. Your first isn't going to be your best, but it's just certainly don't just do one and stop. Keep going, keep improving. There's just so much you have left to learn. All right, Akila, we are coming to the end of our first time stories, and then we can get into the reason why we are all here. So I'm so excited. Okay, Akila, tell us about. You can choose between your 15-year-old story or your Eagle Man story. You let us know, because you've had two first, kind of like.
I've had two first, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'll go with Eagle Man because I really don't remember the first time, other than there's this picture that my parents have of me running down the street and I look like I'm super struggling. But that's all I remember. But I will very briefly share about Eagle Man. I have a very vivid memory. One of my favorite pictures. I am very comfortable in the water. But I never do the warm-up swim, any of that. Probably a bad thing to do. I don't know. For me, I'm just like, I'm just going to get there and go. But at every triathlon, for some reason, when I see the water and how far the buoy's out, I have this moment of just like fear. And tears always come to me, always. Even though I'm extremely comfortable in the water. And there's a very vivid picture of me with my father, who always centers me. And with my first one, my whole family, I was very blessed that my whole family came, because kind of like what Zsa Zsa was saying, it was like, oh, nobody in the family was doing it right. And I come from a family of athletes. And this is the one thing that like I can say, nobody in my family has done has done at this level. Like this is my thing. And so I remember and there's all this like commotion around you, right? And I think one thing that's important to note is that you have to take a minute to just kind of pause before you enter the water or start everything, because it can be overwhelming, right? And so, there's all this excitement. My mom was in my face and my kids were taking pictures, and like, there's, the excitement of all the equipment and the people and, whatever, the pomp and circumstance. And I had just gotten into my wetsuit, and I was, stressed out about that and the dance you do to put on the wetsuit. And tears just started rolling down my face. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? And I didn't have a coach either, because I had decided to self-coach myself through everything. And I had friends that were guiding me through everything, but like I didn't have a coach to kind of do like the the mindset part of it, because triathlon isn't just the physical, it's the mindset part. And I remember my dad just kind of pulling me to the side away from everything and just holding me and letting me cry it out. And he just like held me for like a solid like 2 minutes. And I just remember just bawling my eyes out so I could just kind of like reset, take a minute, take a deep breath. I looked out in the water and I was like, it's going to be okay. Like, I know what I'm doing. There are small craft in the water. If something's going to happen, I can take a deep breath. I can take it slow. I got this. And then I was like, all right, I'm ready. And then he was like, all right, baby girl, go. And then that was it. And then I went and I got in the corral and like, you know, it's like the race director is there and, you know, you're walking down, they're like, hey, what's your name? And I remember I was like, you know, and I went like this, like, I couldn't even like remember my name, like whatever. And then like, I got in the water and like, that was it. And then it was like off to the races. And I still had an Apple Watch at that time. So like, I couldn't really track everything because, you know, those things don't last the whole time. So it like died like halfway through. So I remember it tracked my swim and I was excited about my swim because I caught my swim time. The bike, I don't know. I had a hybrid with mountain bike handlebars because listen, this sport is expensive. So I raced in what I had. People had expensive stuff and all these fancy aerodynamic helmets. And I was all, you know, looking at all the fancy equipment and all sorts of stuff. But one thing that my coach says to me, it's like, it's not about the machine that you have, it's about the power behind the machine. So I, even on Kona, like I know we'll get there, but like I raced on a Roubaix road bike. Like I don't have a fancy tri bike. I don't have any of the fancy gear. Like I just raced on what I had. So I was excited to see all the fancy bikes on my first try, but I had a hybrid road bike with mountain handlebars and regular old helmet. And I didn't have a fancy tri kit. I had bike shorts and a jersey and did my thing, but I had a great time. My family was out there. And I remember I came in and I had two friends, the friend that I had mentioned earlier, my fit friend who suckered me into this whole thing. She beat me, but she was there at the end. And I remember she came up to me. We've got this great picture where she like ran up to me. We're hugging each other and she's like pouring water on me because it was Eagle Man. And Eagle Man is known for being super, super, super hot. They actually have like snow cones or slushy ice like on course and stuff. And I remember hugging her at the end and being like, I've got more in the tank. I've got more in the tank and I want to take this farther. And I was like, I'm going for the next, I'm going for the farthest, for the next distance. And then I signed up for Ironman Maryland. And the next year I went for the full. But yeah, so that was my full, like, I mean, that was my first try, but my first try was a half, 70.3. And then leading up into the full, I sprinkled in some sprints and ollies as part of my prep work for my full.
Yeah, I love it. For your first as an adult, because I think I want to separate the beginning and your adult
absolutely.
time. I love that you had that cry. There's so many people who need to have that cry to know that it's okay. And thank goodness that your dad was with you to be like, all right, now let's go do this. So kudos to you for recognizing that you had more in the tank and wanted to go further. And we will definitely go further on part 2 this Friday. So be sure to tune in on Friday to hear the second part of the Sensational 6 story. Be sure to check out Ask a Coach. That's exclusively on YouTube. And you know, whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win. I'm Mashonda Shines and we're out. Peace. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win.